Good morning. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Today's the 26th of January, 2025, and we're in the book of Nahum. Yesterday I was in my car. Thanks for putting up with that discombobulated 30 minutes. I'm sorry about that. Trying to turn the car into the parking lot and holding the phone with one hand and holding the book, and just then the big interruption where I had to talk to somebody outside the car door and just put the phone on mute, and that wasn't fun, but I am so sorry for all of that interruption. Once a month, I have these food distributions I go to, and it helps with our feeding the homeless, so I am so sorry that the two times collided. All right, so we're in the book of Nahum, and we're going to read about Nineveh today. And I'm so, uh, I don't know, I just feel like Nahum, he had, he just had to walk through some pretty heavy things in his life as a prophet. And I, I feel like respect for him and respect for these prophets that they I just been sitting here thinking about how they really didn't get to choose their assignment. It wasn't like God said, I know they didn't have baseball at the time, but it wasn't like God said, hey, you're really good at baseball, let's make that your life, you know, the way you can glorify me. Or surfing or something, rock climbing. These guys had to speak out against things that we wouldn't even have the courage to do, and I don't think. And in many times they were despised, and they just lived such rough existences, like maybe they didn't have um, proper homes or provisions that we would need daily. Um, so I just, I've been sitting here thinking, what would it have been like to be Nahum, for instance? And I guess we'll find out in heaven someday. We can ask him. But until then, let's read about the faithfulness of what he walked through and what he had to say and how he had to lead the people with his prophetic words that were not easy to give. Okay, so we're in chapter 2, and that's page 265, and it's the title of this whole chapter is The Siege of Nineveh. So right off the bat, I want to just clear up, if you weren't on yesterday, that Nineveh was the focal point also in the book of Jonah. And Jonah happened or occurred, the events of Jonah and his life, and the repentance of the city of Nineveh happened about 140 years before this. So at that point, the Ninevites repented, and they were good. They were saved. They were not destroyed. Even, Jonah had brought the word, and he was like, you need to destroy these people. They're wicked. But God, had mercy. Jonah was upset, very angry at God. And now it's 140 years later, and Nineveh is back to their old ways and walking away from God. And now Nahum is telling them, this is it. And that made me sad. I thought, how many times has this gone down through history, where we don't really have the purview like we do here scripturally, and the timeline and the city name, but maybe other places God was saying, turn back to me, and they weren't doing so. And then maybe there was some catastrophic event in their country, a takeover by another country or some, I don't know, big thing happened to wipe out their people, and maybe we don't know specifically like we do here that it was God's judgment. But here we do know. All right, so here's the scriptures starting with verse 1. Nineveh, an attacker, or another word would be scatterer, is poised to advance against you. Place your guards along the top of the walls. Set lookouts on the road. Go ahead. Get ready for battle. Gather all your forces, but it will be in vain. For Yahweh is about to restore the majesty of Jacob and Israel her glory. For you have plundered everything and ruined their vineyards. The invading soldiers' shields are scarlet, each warrior robed in red. The metal of the Babylonian chariots gleams like fire on the day that they're made ready for battle, and the wooden spears are brandished in anticipation. The chariots race madly through the streets of Nineveh. Can you imagine this? This is such a picture. They dash wildly through the public squares, gleaming like torches, darting like lightning. The king of Assyria summons his elite commanders, but they stumble while attempting to advance. The attackers run swiftly to the city wall. The protective canopy for the battering ram is set up, and the floodgates are opened. The royal palace is inundated by the surging torrent and collapses. Nineveh is stripped, taken captive, and carried into exile. Her maidservants moan like doves and beat their breasts in sorrow. The people rush out of Nineveh. The water pours out of a broken dam. The officers shout, "Stop, stop!" But no one turns back. Plunder the silver, plunder the gold. Look, there is no end of the treasure. Heaps of everything precious, or every precious thing. Desolation, devastation, destruction. What if those were the words that God put in your mouth? Hearts melting, knees knocking, stomachs churning, faces turning pale. What has happened now to the lion's den, which is Assyria, where the fierce lions were fed, where the lion and lioness once lived, where the cubs frolicked cozy and fearless. Like a lion, Assyria once killed his prey and tore it to pieces, filling his cave with meat for his mate and her cubs. Behold, I'm your enemy, declares Yahweh, commander of angel armies. I will burn your chariots to ashes, and the sword will slaughter your young lions. No longer will you prey upon the land, and your messengers will announce no more victories. Okay, wow. So that's the whole chapter there. Let me just ask something. Okay. I just was asking a question about Nineveh and just kind of getting a remembrance. What we've said things before, but Nineveh was the largest city in the world for a period of time. And it was destroyed in 612, or let's see, BC by a coalition of Babylonians and Medes. All right, let's just read through this is a different time though. This is 722 BC, which is before the 612 BC. It was a center for culture, trade, and civilization. It was the center of worship for a goddess named Ishtar, and was a center of worship for her. Actually, that reminds me that Jonathan Cahn, Cahn, has written extensively about this goddess of Ishtar and how she has been reappearing in our modern culture. Let's see. I don't know how to bring that up right now, but or I could, but I don't want to get sidetracked here. Oh, good morning, Amy. Yes, it is really cold here, Amy. I can't tell you how strong the winds are, and it's hard to go outside even to walk. They're so strong, and it's very cold. Okay, so the 10 verse 2 says Yahweh's about to restore the majesty of Jacob and Israel for her glory, because they've plundered everything and ruined their vineyards. And it says the 10 northern tribes were the victims of scorched earth warfare by the Assyrians, who were ruling the remaining peasants with a rod of iron. The judgment of God avenging the destruction of the northern kingdom, Israel in 722 BC. This is what this is about. The Medes and the Babylonians who captured Nineveh were noted for wearing red uniforms. That's interesting. And over on page 266, it talks about the water, the floodgates opening up. There's a surging torrent, and the royal palace is inundated and actually collapses. There were dams around Nineveh to control the river waters that flowed through the city, and the floodgates were opened for destruction. Yeah. And then in verse 7, it says that Nineveh is stripped, taken captive, and carried into exile, and her maidservants moan like doves and beat their breasts in sorrow. It could be here, Nineveh could be seen as her mistress, and her mistress is a hapax lexomenion. This is a Hebrew word, Hutzab, which may be the name of the queen of Nineveh, or a name for the goddess Ishtar, worshipped in Assyria. And they don't know for sure what the actual meaning is. Nineveh is like a pool in verse 8. The water pours out of a broken dam, it says. And its waters, in the notes, it says its waters are draining away. However, this clause, in the context of the imminent destruction of the city, is most likely a metaphorical expression for the terror-stricken Ninevites fleeing the city as fast as they can. So they are just fleeing out at the pace of, rushing water. They're trying to get out. And the plunder of the silver and the gold and everything valuable is heaped up into big treasures. There's devastation. There's destruction. Everyone's kind of sick, at the destruction. The lion was a common emblem of Assyrian culture. Thus, the city of Nineveh is described metaphorically as a lion's den. And the young lions in verse 11 where the lions and lioness once lived, where the cubs frolicked, cozy and fearless. Those young lions was a metaphor for their soldiers, the young men who were fighting for them. And they're all, where they once lived cozy and frolicked and were fearless, now they are, it says their chariots are burned to ashes, their swords slaughter them, the young lions, the Assyrian soldiers. And it says you won't be able to announce victory anymore. You can't pray on the land anymore. That's the final verse of chapter 2. So God is having his way. And then in chapter 3, that we'll go over tomorrow, Monday, it will be talking about the destruction of Nineveh and how Assyria will crumble. So these are things that actually happened in history. And the prophet Nahum is just letting them know this is going to be happening. It would be so scary, wouldn't it? If you believed him. That's the thing. A lot of people didn't believe him till it was too late, probably, So, anyway, let me grab my book again. That is the end of chapter 2. And like I said, tomorrow, Monday, we'll be in chapter 3. The next book after we read about, the destruction of Nineveh is the book of Habakkuk. And it will take me, the notes under Habakkuk call it triumphant faith. Habakkuk is kind of unique. It's going to be kind of fun to read this because Habakkuk had this wonderful relationship with God that we're going to be able to hear their dialogue and how they talk to each other. And I love getting insights from this prophet. His prayer is, very well known in the Bible. It's amazing what he says to the Lord. And we'll probably take Tuesday and Wednesday for me to catch up with my understanding of Habakkuk a little bit before we start. Of course, those are the days that you can get caught up if you haven't heard all of Nahum or any of the others. And then you can read ahead, of course, into the introduction of Habakkuk if you want to. And then I think, so that would bring us to Thursday morning, which is when I would probably start the introduction to Habakkuk if everything goes right. If I get everything done. So then Friday morning I won't be able to be on because I have a doctor's appointment. And I would resume in Habakkuk on Saturday. So it's kind of tomorrow, then Thursday, then Saturday this week is what I think is the timeline is going to work out to be. So, and then after that it would be every day again until we have a break to catch up for the next section, the next chapter, or book. All right, so good morning, Gail. All right, so happy Sunday to you guys. I hope you have a blessed day. And we'll be back here tomorrow reading more about Nahum and the Ninevites. And God bless you, everything you do today. May he be with you. Bye-bye.